What's going on, everyone? Happy Wednesday. Welcome to the David F. Haas podcast. So humbly named the David F. Haas podcast. Thanks for taking the time to listen to my podcast today. As always, I think it's going to be insightful. I was literally sitting in my office knowing that I had to record this podcast, and I had no clue what I was going to talk about. And then I went through the process that I always go through. And the answer was revealed to me, was to talk about the process of how to stay creative, how to do what nobody else is doing, how to be busy for the rest of your life. This is the power that comes when we learn to connect to our higher selves. We learn to connect to the highest good. We learn to connect to God, the creator, whatever you want to call it, universe. We can stay on the crest of the wave of creativity. And in order for us to be creative, we have to get rid of all the noise. And what is the noise? Well, the noise are our thoughts. The noise are the emotions that are driving those thoughts. The noise are belief systems. The noise is the programs. The noise is actually just actual noise as well. Instagram, Facebook, TV, traffic, whatever it may be. There's just a bunch of noise around us, and we have to find moments to quiet the mind so that we can get outside of the circle of what we know. And we can start doing things that nobody else is doing. There's this great book out there. It's called 0 to 1. And it's about the startup world and starting up businesses. And I kind of love this one line. He says, there won't be another Bill Gates. There's never going to be somebody else that develops a software system. There won't be another Mark Zuckerberg that develops the biggest social network in the world. There won't be another guy that creates Twitter. It's like if you're copying what other people are doing, you're always going to be kind of behind the ball. You want to be first. So this doesn't mean you have to go out and create this like gigantic business, but even in my coaching business, it's very easy to get caught up in what other people are doing and just copying. And like I remember seeing this like downtown Windsor. It was like so hilarious just to observe. I've been in the bar restaurant industry since I was 18, so 24 years I've been in that industry, and just to watch the bars come and go, the businesses downtown come and go, and like so it'd be like one guy would open up and he would have success, and then all of a sudden someone else would open up like, oh, this guy's making money, let me just do exactly what he was doing, and they would never have that success. And this is actually funny that this is coming up because this is one thing that I had a challenge, and there was a moment when I was trying to sell Treehouse, and I was like, hey, the business is, makes like $300K a year. It's worth, I would say it's worth at least $600,000. And people would be like, I can just do that myself. I can just go and open up a bar and make it even nicer than what Treehouse is and make that same amount of money. But they could never do it because they weren't first, right? They didn't have that established proven track record. And so when you just try and copy, you're always just going to be behind the ball. And can you make money copying? 100%. You can. But for me, I want to be focused on doing what nobody else is doing. And that's what I'm doing with my property that I just purchased out in Harrow on the water. It's like there is going to be nothing. I'm talking about nothing in the greater Essex County area, Windsor, Essex County area, that is going to be like this. So the demand for what I'm doing is going to be through the roof. Like we're going to be so busy with my coaching practice. And I don't want this to be a bragging session, so I'm going to make this quick. But with my coaching practice, I created the Letting Go School because I saw the hole in the market that no one knows how to deal with their emotions, right? And no one realizes how survival patterns, the ego is holding them back. No one realizes how spiritual growth is pretty much the be-all, end-all when it comes to achieving whatever it is that you want to achieve in your life. And that's why I created the Letting Go School. Because I'm doing things that nobody else is doing, I remain successful, and people are always trying to catch up to what I'm doing. And what I'm doing in my coaching practice, what I'm doing with this property that I've purchased, I'm 10 years ahead of everybody, right? So, and even further maybe with coaching. Now, are people ahead of me in marketing and Facebook and advertising? Yeah, 100%. But what I'm looking at is What can I be doing that no one else is doing? So today, not this morning, it's the evening when I'm recording this here. I'm thinking about the podcast, and I was just like, I wasn't really feeling the motivation. Nothing was coming to me. And, I've pretty much recorded almost 80 episodes of the David F. Haas podcast. And it's pretty much all just been from my knowledge and experience. I don't have any notes. Yeah, of course I've had guests, but I don't usually have any notes. I'm just going from what I've learned. And I guess today was a day where I'm like, I'm out of material. I don't know. But anyway, so I'm sitting there and I'm like, well, what am I going to make the podcast about today? And then, so my process to remain creative, to do what no one else is doing, is to silence my mind, connect to the silence, get away from all of the noise. So what I did, I sat in my office, sat in meditation. And as I'm meditating, trying to be creative, it just basically comes to me as like, well, talk about the creative process. And I'm like, that's exactly it. So if you want to stay on the crest of the wave of creativity, and this doesn't mean for business. This could be anything. If you want to be an art, like my wife's an artist, and her and I have done some of these exercises together to come up with unique designs that nobody else is doing, right? People are creative these days by going on Google and just seeing what everyone else is doing. And what I want to do is I just want to remove myself from that. And it's even getting even harder now to be creative because these social media companies, Google, they're just getting so wise, and they're starting to, if you type in tattoo designs, then all of a sudden they're going to start feeding you ad for tattoo designs. You type in coach, and they're going to start feeding you ad for coaches. So it's very hard for us to even get outside of the circle of what we know because we're just being fed so much information, and they're like tuning into what it is that we're Google searching or what we looked up on the internet, what shows we watch. It's really wild what they're doing right now with regards to marketing. So it's harder and harder for us to get creative. So in order to get creative, we need to create the space for creativity. I think this is probably the key to the podcast is creating the space for creativity. So if your mind is just constantly racing and you're wrapped up in overthinking, if you're stressed out to the max, if you have a million things on your plate, if you're busy, right, you're just never going to have any room to allow something to come in from a higher power that no one else is doing. Now, here's the thing: is like there aren't very many unique ideas or original ideas, and you can, if you think that your idea is original, come up with a business model and then try and find the .com for it. Pretty much every .com that you can think of business model wise has been taken, and it's because ideas are everything that happens, every thought that happens, every action that happens, every conversation that happens is stored into what I call collective consciousness, which is basically the hard drive of the universe. And once it's out there, it is pretty much available for anybody to tap into. The thing that you have going on your side is that very few people actually know how to tap into this wisdom or to this power. And the more busy we become, the more connected to our cell phones that we become, the less we are connected, the less we're downloading this information. But every now and then you do get a download of like an amazing idea. I remember my friend and I, James, him and I and my cousin, actually Ryan, invented the game Spikeball 15 years ago, right? We were just in the moment. We were playing around, and the game Spikeball essentially came to us. Now, we didn't have the net, and it didn't. But I'm guessing it would have evolved to that point if we would have put the effort and when we would have jumped into it, saying, "Hey, we're going to create this game." But essentially, that was the game, which was keep the ball up 3 times into the concrete. For us, it wasn't a net, but it was essentially Spikeball, right? And we joke about it now because Spikeball is this gigantic game. And I'm like, man, we invented that 20 something years ago, but we never did anything with it. But somebody else picked up on probably that idea. We probably picked up on it for somebody else and then actually executed on the idea, right? And because they created something completely unique, no one else was doing it. The what do you call it? I'm drawing a blank here. Basically, the popularity, there it is. The popularity of that game has been huge because no one else was doing it. There's nothing like it on the market, right? And this is what we want to tap into. So how do we tap into it? So the big thing for me is I just get quiet. So I'm just meditating, and I'm basically asking for what is in the highest good to be revealed to me. So when I can't come up with a topic for my podcast, I'm sitting there and saying, hey, like, what is it that people need? what's in the highest good for me to give today in this podcast? And then immediately it was revealed to me. But it can't be revealed to you from the circle of what you know. We want to get outside of the circle of what you know. So Einstein said that a problem cannot be solved from the same level of consciousness it was created. But basically what he's saying is, if this circle right here represents every single thing that you know, or if you're listening, imagine you're holding a ball in your hand and that ball represents everything that you know. Anytime you have a problem or you're looking for a solution or looking to go creative, if you're not getting outside of your mind, you're only going within that circle to solve that problem or to create something new. So in order to create something new, we need to get outside of that ball, right? We can get outside of that ball by expanding our knowledge, by Google searching, sure. But the real way to get outside of the ball is to connect to the present moment. It is in the present moment that the unknown is revealed to us. This is how we get outside of this circle. And I use this all the time in business. I remember having business meetings with my partners my managers at the bar. And I would say, you know what? After like 30 minutes of discussion on how we're going to promote more people coming into the bar or restaurant. And then I said, why don't we just sit in a meditation and see what comes to us? And then in 2 minutes, we had so many ideas that were way, way more advanced than what anyone else was doing, right? And because we continue to do that process, we continue to have success. So for me, what it looks like is this: I sit in meditation, I get grounded, I get connected, so I'm basically, grounding is essentially imagining that you're standing or sitting on a bed of roots and you're connected to the earth. So that's what I call grounding, right? It's just feeling the connection to the earth. Then I make a connection to divinity, to higher power, to God, whatever it is, whatever your understanding is of higher power. And then I go into this mode where I'm just observing my thoughts. So thoughts come into my mind, they're random, they're all over the place. I just observe it and let it pass. And I keep going through that process until I get to this place where the thoughts aren't coming as much, or I'm just starting to feel the energy of the thought. And then I'm in this place of peace and silence. And then from that peace and silence, I'm essentially asking, or I've already asked the question, what is in the highest good for me? Or what is the solution to this problem? Or what is something that I could create, that is completely unique? And then I wait for the answer to be revealed. And usually in 2 to 3 minutes, I'm getting really, really amazing stuff. And this is how you get outside of the circle of what you know. And I think I've talked about this on the podcast before. I can't remember who it is, but I think this is from the book Think and Grow Rich, or from a Napoleon Hill lecture that I downloaded at one point. And he's talking about this one, Napoleon Hill's this guy that has essentially followed around the most successful people in America for 20 years and wanted to know what it was they were doing that no one else was doing, which is something that was completely creative, which is also, this was before any, this was happening, this happens all the time now, but this was before any self-help books and stuff like that. He was the godfather of personal development, essentially. And one of the people, I don't remember who it is, had this room that had no windows in it, and he had installed a light switch on the desk. And this is a guy that's a multi-millionaire at the time, probably a billionaire in today's day and age. And so he had a light switch on the desk, and he had a pad and paper, and he would sit in the complete darkness until business ideas would come to him. And as soon as an idea came to him, he would flick the light switch on and he would write it out. And then he would go back into the darkness and wait for these ideas to come. So this is what I'm talking about creating the space, how to do anything, how to do something that nobody else is doing, right? And it's about getting outside of our mind, connecting to this infinite intelligence. So let me expand a little bit on infinite intelligence. I don't want to make this a super long podcast because I don't need to kill this thing, but I think you're getting the essence of it. We need to create space for creativity. But let me expand a little bit on what collective consciousness is. So when something happens in the world, it's stored into this universal hard drive. And we can tap into that universal hard drive because we are all interconnected and we are all one. So if you had an addiction and learned how to resolve it, that knowledge of how to overcome an addiction is now available for me to download. Right? And actually, as I'm saying this, I'm I still struggle with my addiction to pop and sugar. And as I'm saying this, I'm I haven't even downloaded that yet. I've done it a few times, but I know there's someone out there that has already solved this problem. And I just need to tap into the knowledge that they have already put out there. But other examples of this is Roger Bannister, right? He's the guy that broke the 4-minute mile. Before he broke the 4-minute mile, it was believed that it was physically impossible for a human being to run a mile faster than 4 minutes. Once Roger Bannister did it, 2 weeks later, somebody else did it. A few weeks later, more people do it. And then eventually it became the new norm of breaking the 4-minute mile. So the knowledge and the know-how got put out into collective consciousness. Other people started picking up on it, and then they could then break the 4-minute mile. Scientists have becoming more attuned to this idea of collective consciousness. And they started putting mice in 2 different rooms or 2 different countries. And the study I read was about mice in Russia and mice in the United States. And they had the exact same maze, a very difficult maze. And for weeks, the mice would try and solve the maze to get to the cheese. And then finally, when the mice in Russia solved it, within days, the mice in the United States solved it. So once the knowledge is out there, we can tap into it. Now you're probably saying, well, that's not creative. You're still just stealing from other people's ideas. Yes, but the person who executes is the person who wins. I actually just made a video about probably my superpower, or the one thing that has led me to being super successful is, I don't want to say super successful, being successful in life, not having multiple businesses have failed, not going bankrupt, having money in the bank, is my ability to execute. If once I see a task, once I have a vision, I am going to execute it, and I'm going to make money. And I've done it over and over again in my life. And because of that ability to execute, that's why I've had the success I've had in my life. So these ideas get stored into collective consciousness, and it's the person who grabs it and executes on it is the person that is actually going to prosper from that creativity. So there are all kinds of multi-million-dollar ideas, creative drawings, song ideas that are all stored in this hard drive, and we just need to learn how to connect to the hard drive so we can start downloading it and executing on it. And this is how you stay on the crest of the wave of creativity. This is how you do things that nobody else is doing. This is how you live in a world where there's zero competition, right? And that's what I did at Treehouse for 20 years. There was competition all around me. Did I get wrapped up in it? 100%, every now and then. But then, in the last 5 years, all I cared about was what I was doing, and everyone else was chasing me, essentially. So if you can learn how to get outside the circle of what you know, learn how to create the space to be creative, you can connect to this infinite intelligence, and you can have the ability to be in a market, to be in a place where no one else is doing. And that's what I'm always trying to connect to, is like, what is no one else doing, right? What can I do that nobody else is doing? So business essentially is solving problems, right? So if you ask, what is the problem that I'm on this earth to solve for people? That's where you can start tapping into this creativity, and then actually physically creating the space as well. Like, meaning having a room where you can get quiet, and having a meditation place, having a shrine, whatever it may be, where you can actually take the time out of your day to become creative. And I'll leave you with one little tip, is that if you're just learning to install the habit of meditation, you want to make it a micro habit, okay, or an atomic habit, which is from the book Atomic Habits. You want to make it so easy that you just cannot dismiss it. So you want to say, I'm just going to meditate 1 minute a day. And I know that seems like, well, what's the sense of meditating 1 minute a day? You can't even kind of get settled in 1 minute. But we're not trying to get the benefits yet. We're trying to install the habit. And after 40 or 66 days, whatever, the science is saying that this is what you need to install a habit, even if only meditating for 1 minute at a time, you are going to become a person who meditates. And once you've installed this micro habit, then you can start using that meditation and that daily practice to start getting creative and start asking or connecting to the universe, connecting to God, connecting to collective consciousness, and to bring creative, unique, new ideas to you so that you can execute on them. And once you find one that you're aligned with, then you're just going to go full steam. And this is the power. This is it. And I've done all kinds of things with this. I've created multiple business ideas. I got movie ideas. I got book ideas. They all came from this. And I just have to. The ideas are so abundant that I have to pick and choose the ones I actually want to do. And some of them are really, really good. So recently what I've been doing with my really, really good ideas is just been giving them away. It's like, just take it, because I'm never going to do anything with it. So if I can benefit one of my friends or family members, I just give it away and just let go of it, right? So it's kind of like a great place to be when you're connected to the field and when you're on the crest of the wave of creativity. So that's today's podcast. That's how you do what no one else is doing. So you create this zone of like zero competition. And if you really get good at it, you'll be light years ahead, of the competition. Like what Hawkins did, his books are probably 100 years ahead of where, maybe even longer, probably 1,000 years ahead of where humanity's consciousness is. So there's a reason why people were drawn to his work, right? Because he was just so advanced, and very few people even can grasp some of the concepts that are in that book, in his books, in his work. But because of that, he had no competition. He would put on a lecture. He would say, hey, I'm doing a lecture, and it would be sold out in like 10 minutes. And this is the power that comes from true creativity. And I hope that podcast helps you become more creative. I'd love to hear about your creative process. And if it's working for you, you can comment below. You can comment below some other tips about getting creative. I think that would be really beneficial to everyone listening. That's it. Thanks for taking the time to listen. Don't forget, if you haven't already, click subscribe. I'm here every Wednesday. And have a great day.